What's up, guys? Just managed to check into the Airbnb here in Korea. Glad I was able to, arrive in time to film this market update. But guys, how cool is this? Like, look at this. How cool is this? Oh man, this is why I love traveling. Changing environments keeps you just fresh and, excited about life. And yeah, super excited to actually show you guys around. And the vlog is definitely coming. But anyways, let's get to it. Let's get to business. We'll talk more about life later on. Anyways, today I'm going to get into the setup for Bitcoin. I do realize that I have forgotten to talk about Solana and Ethereum yesterday, so not going to make that same mistake. So also going to talk about Solana and Ethereum. The setup for yesterday, again, ended up being bullish, and we ended up being right on that setup, where basically, once you got that change in state of delivery, you just shot all the way up. Again, I didn't actually trade this myself yesterday, primarily because I was traveling. Yesterday was my last day in Hong Kong and I just arrived in Korea. But anyways, that would be, I think, the 108th win out of the last 138 calls that I've made publicly here on YouTube. So if you're new to this channel, first of all, welcome. It's a very aesthetic trading channel, as you can see. But also just understand that you're probably in the right place, because I tend to be right more often than I'm wrong. In fact, I'm right about 80% of the time when it comes to these calls. So without any further ado, let's get into the call for today. Now, first thing to understand is yesterday we had a bullish daily close, and the fact that we closed above this level right here, if you remember yesterday, I was talking about this level being very important. We needed to close above this level before we can confidently say hey, at the very least on the daily chart, you already have some sort of bullish changes to delivery. And so from this point onwards, it's already safe enough to where we can start confidently looking for longs. So yesterday's daily candle also closed bullish, which means that the daily bias for today is going to be bullish. So today, the setup's also pretty clear. We're going to be looking for longs. Now, besides that, you also need to understand that today we have news. Unlike yesterday, now, even though there was no news yesterday, it ended up being quite a clean day. And that's, more of the exception and not the rule. Usually you want to look for these clean price action movements to happen on days where there is news. Yesterday was not, one of those examples. Just understand that ideally you still want to be trading, or rather focusing most of your trading on news days. And that's exactly what we got today. At 10 a.m. New York today, we have news, and this is not super duper major, but it's good enough to where we can focus our trading an hour before news. We can expect something to happen in the markets, maybe starting from 8:30 a.m. And so that's going to be the time window that we're going to focus on today. It's the hour before news and the hour after news. And the reason why this is important, by the way, in trading, there are so many variables that you're dealing with at any given time. There is direction, there is how far is price going to go, or how low is it going to go? And then you have to still deal with timing, when is it going to happen and how long is the move going to last? The beautiful thing about news is that it kind of removes one of those variables for you, in the sense that you pretty much know that something's going to happen the hour leading up to news, and it's probably going to continue the hour after news. And so that just helps you focus your attention on actually figuring out what price action is going to do, instead of trying to figure out when are things going to happen. It's also the reason why I discuss so much about trading within kill zones as well. For those of you who are not aware, there is a reason why I always mention to take your trades anywhere between 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. New York. It's because that is the New York kill zone. And it's just a time window where things are more likely to happen. Whatever that you've learned from your trading, technical analysis, whatever, it doesn't matter if that's all you focus on. The truth is, reading the markets and understanding price and actually trading involves two things: the behavior of price, which is your traditional technical analysis, but also timing, right? It's the behavior of price at certain timings. That's what matters. Most people only focus on the first side of the equation, and that's why they don't get consistent results. By the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, drop a like, drop a comment. Truly goes a long way to show me that, these daily videos that I make actually does, help you guys out. Because the truth is, I try my best to film one of these videos every single day. I just landed, and here I am. This is the first thing I'm doing. In fact, I haven't even unpacked yet. So anyways, let's get back into the video. Daily bias today, we are looking for a long, and we're going to look for that specifically between the hour leading up to the news, or potentially even an hour and a half. But what's the good news is that, no pun intended, the good news is that so far, this is a fair value gap, right? Which price is currently already filled, but you have a lower fair value gap over here on the 1 hourly chart. Now, we start off on the daily chart by just understanding, or rather using the daily chart as our bias tool, which is just another fancy way of saying, we use the daily chart to determine direction. Is it going to go higher or is it going to go lower? Today, we've already determined that we're looking for a long. And so now we come down to the 1 hourly chart, which serves a different purpose, which is we're using the 1 hourly chart to identify PD arrays, or it's also just another fancy term for saying areas of interest as to where that support our theory of our higher time frame buys. So in this case, we have a bullish higher time frame buys, and so we're going to look for bullish PD arrays to support that theory. And so that is going to be the first feather gap right here. And we're also going to mark out this liquidity sweep that just occurred, because this is also an area of interest. So those are going to be the two levels that makes most sense. Of course, you could go really far and mark out literally every single PD array, but I think there is something to be said for marking out only the ones that are going to be relevant for the time frame that you're looking at. The truth is, I'm sure Bitcoin is going to go to $150,000 someday. Does that apply to an intraday trading basis? Probably not. So that's why I don't talk about it. So we're going to focus on the intraday stuff. So far, the hourly order flow looks to be pretty bullish. And so this is all good for us to go down to the lower timeframes to see if there are any price action developments that we can look for. Similar to what I did yesterday with the close, right? Once you get a candle close, no, this is Sunday, my bad. So once you get a candle close above here, remember, like exactly what I said was 5-minute chart. If you get a candle close above there, then you're going to look for longs for the rest of the day. And that was pretty straightforward. Today is also going to be pretty similar. So there are two ways that I see this playing out so far. One is price is going to pump from here on out, which is after this liquidity sweep, you're going to get a 5-minute change in state of delivery. So ideally you want to see a candle close, right? Based on scenario number 1 that I'm discussing right now, you want a candle close above $114,000 on the 5-minute chart. Once that happens, this is known as a change in state of delivery. Basically shows you that not only do you have an idea that the market is going to go towards the upside, but the market is also telling you that, hey, it indeed wants to go to the upside. And you only enter once you get the confirmation from the market. Because it's one thing to, have opinions and have thoughts on what the market should do, and it's another thing to actually trade what the market is telling you. That's going to be setup number 1, where you basically bounce from this point onwards. Setup number 2, they are still very similar in nature. I'm just giving you 2 scenarios because they are both likely to happen. Is you wait for price to get into this bullish feather gap here, which is at 113,100. And once price gets into this level right here, you're going to look for price to actually do that change in state of delivery as well. So you're going to, again, look for this to happen somewhere between the couple of hours leading up to the news. So starting at 8 a.m., I think you can be on high alert for this to happen. If you guys want kind of like my take on when these confirmations are in play, feel free to follow me on Twitter at _theartofcrypto. If there are any live trades or whatever, I tend to post it there. Again, I apologize for not posting it yesterday. I was just a little bit busy, being the last day in Hong Kong, had to do some packing and whatever, but I'll be here today for sure. But lastly, let's talk about bearish invalidation scenarios, because again, seems like most of the major signals are pointing towards the upside, but there is also a risk that this whole idea to get invalidated. And the reason for that is because that is going to dictate whether or not you jump into a long or not. If the market continues to just fall from this point onwards and you do not get any sort of change in order flow on the 5-minute chart, then guess what? You're not going to jump into a long. You're just going to maybe even stay out of the market until, some more different signals come along. Now, do I think that's likely? I don't think that's likely. Is there a possibility? Yeah, sure. It's just like anything in life, right? There's always at least a 0.1% probability. So I would still advise you to, look for the long direction, look for the long trade. I'll definitely be on Twitter, keeping you guys up to date on this. But anyways, now that we are done with Bitcoin, let's just talk about Ethereum real quick. Now, Ethereum has a bullish daily bias. Unfortunately, you have not yet given any sort of changes to delivery. So that makes Ethereum a little bit more complicated because you don't have any areas of interest to fall back on. With Bitcoin, now we can mark out this previous area of resistance into like a potential area of support, right? Where basically that feather gap on the 1 hourly chart is going to align with that order block as well. But on Ethereum, that's looking a little bit different. But the setup goes the same. You are going to be looking for longs on Ethereum. And so far, you are retracing back into this order block at the moment. And you also have this lower order block right here. And so if you want to take a long on Ethereum, personally, I would focus more on Bitcoin. Then yeah, the setup is either going to be retracing into either one of these levels, looking for that 5-minute change in state delivery, or alternatively, with Ethereum, another condition that you want to look for is a break above 41.90. If you get a break above 41.90, you look for retracement, flip this area of previous resistance into potential support, and that's how you go along with that. And then let's take a look on just the higher time frame, see where we're at. Again, the weekly order block has been filled right here. So you would reasonably anticipate this week to actually go towards the upside. Of course, this all changes if Bitcoin decides that A, it doesn't want to go to the upside and it wants to go down instead. Then, all of this is going to get invalidated. But otherwise, just focus on longs for now, because that's what the market is telling us. If there's one bit of advice that I could give you, is that if you're going to take either one of these trades, just make sure you stick to one, because there is absolutely zero reason for you to be taking multiple trades at the same time, especially when they're crypto, because if Bitcoin falls, everything is just going to go to absolute trash. And so you're essentially just taking the same trade multiple times, just with different packaging, right? One of them is called Ethereum, one of them is called Bitcoin, but essentially they're the same chart. So taking two trades, same direction, you're just taking the same trade twice, which means you're just doubling your risk exposure. So taking a look at Solana, also you have filled in that bullish order block on the weekly chart, but you have a weekly close to the bearish direction. So this week you're actually anticipating more towards the bearish direction. Although yesterday you did get a bullish close, so you're going to be looking for a bullish trade from an intraday perspective. And so far, again, like the reason why I would recommend Bitcoin today is because one, it looks the strongest in the sense that Ethereum and Solana, you did not get any sort of bearish order block breakthrough and then potentially flip it into support. With Ethereum and Solana, you're very much working more on speculation rather than clear concrete price action. So I know there are some of you out there that prefers to trade Ethereum and Solana. So the setup today is going to be just two. One is this liquidity sweep right here at $204. If you get a liquidity sweep followed by a change in state of delivery, again, couple of hours leading up to news, so starting 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., that's when you're going to look for this, then that is going to be your long setup. Alternatively, you could also just bounce from this point onwards because you're already in some kind of bearish order block. This is going to happen. I don't know. That's why I'm marking out the scenarios. That's why I'm making these videos a few hours in advance, calling, things that are likely to happen, so that when the conditions are met and these things actually happen, you know exactly what to do to prepare for this. But anyways, guys, I'm going to go grab some dinner, explore the neighborhood around me. And guys, what a absolute blast being able to travel in Korea and staying in this place. Like, man, what a vibe. Vlog is definitely going to come soon. If you want to follow me on the vlog channel or whatever, feel free to subscribe I'm going to put the channel name somewhere here or down below. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on Twitter later, and I'll definitely see you guys tomorrow in the video. Ciao, ciao.